Everybody knows that technology is one of the fastest growing industries in the world right now. It's disrupting all types of industries from e-commerce like Amazon, finance, cryptocurrency, or even travel like Airbnb and Uber. And because the industry is growing so fast, now more than ever, there are more jobs created for you to actually take advantage of. So what I'm going to be doing in this video is going over some of the top 7 highest paying jobs you can get in technology, even if you don't know how to code, you're not very technical, and even if you don't have any experience, frankly. So if you're someone that always wants to get into tech, well, make sure you watch this video until the end to find out what these 7 jobs are. What's going on, everybody? Patrick Dang here. Welcome back to the channel. Now, before we go ahead and get started, make sure to give this video a like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and let's go ahead and dive into the top 7 highest paying jobs in tech you can get without knowing how to code. Now, the first one we're going to talk about is going to be the sales development rep. You know, I'm someone who started my career in sales working at Oracle, so I know a lot about this particular area in tech. So if you want to get into sales, right, technology sales, the entry-level position typically most people get into is the sales development role. And all that really is a person whose job it is to generate meetings with potential customers. So if I work at Oracle and my job would be, hey, I got to call this person, email them, try to generate a meeting. And once that meeting is generated, I kind of just pass it on to the next guy who actually uses that lead and closes the deal. So a sales development rep is really good for anyone who's just getting started because you don't really need to have any prior sales experience. You can learn everything on the job. It doesn't really matter what your education background is, to be honest, because they don't really teach this skill set in school anyway. So a lot of companies like Oracle, Salesforce, and even startups, they know that they have to train you from the ground up. And so if you're trying to break into sales, you know, sales development reps, it definitely is something I should check out. And also they get paid high salaries, high commissions. So you might be making, let's say like 40 to 80K your first year as a sales development rep, and not many jobs out there can promise that. So it's definitely something I would recommend everyone check out as a high paying entry-level job without sales experience. Now, the next high-paying job we're gonna get into is gonna be the digital marketer. So technology companies, you know, somebody has to do the marketing, right? And there's many different types of marketers out there. There are paid advertising marketers, content marketers, SEO optimization marketers, email marketers, marketing for mobile apps, so many different channels you can use to market a product or service. So marketing is really good because, you know, it's one of those jobs that don't really require you to have a lot of background or a lot of experience, right? So if you're coming in as an entry-level paid advertiser, well, what experience could you get that would help you actually do well in this job? Like, you actually just have to learn it on the job. Marketing is really great for anyone who's just starting out because as long as you have a knack or interest in marketing, you can probably just get started. You can watch YouTube videos, read books, and really get the ball rolling and prepare enough to actually get past the interview process. And when you actually get into the job, companies understand like, hey, this guy doesn't really know much. I like him though, so let's go ahead and just train him from the ground up, right? Very similar to sales in that regard. So many different types of marketing that may suit your style. So, you know, definitely check that out as well. And now the next high-paying job we have for you is actually the recruiter. Now, recruiters, you know, in my opinion, are very similar to salespeople, right? Except the only difference is a salesperson is selling a product and service. A recruiter is placing someone into a job. So the product is really that person's career, right? To be a good recruiter, in my opinion, is a very similar skill set to a salesperson. You have to be able to communicate with people, be persuasive, show value, follow up, know how to cold outreach people, get people interested, even though they have no idea who you are. And because of that, to be a recruiter, well, you don't really need any prior experience. Really, all you just need to have is the right attitude, the willingness to learn, just like sales, and you'll probably be okay. And like sales, because it's a job where you really have to put yourself out there, different companies might have different compensation plans or commission based on how many people you're able to place into a company. And so, you know, if you're someone who likes to not just get like a salary that's fixed, your work is really judged based on your performance and your compensation is based on that. Well, recruiting is also a path you can take if you don't want to sell products and services, but rather deal with people and help them get their dream jobs, essentially. All right, so the next job that we have is going to be the customer success manager. So in sales, typically you'll have a salesperson whose job it is to sell the person a product or service, and then they close the deal, right? Now, what happens to the customer after the deal is closed? Well, you have to make sure that customer is happy, especially in technology, because the way that technology works is that you don't make all the money like upfront, right? You get someone to sign a deal. The money really comes from that customer sticking with you for years to come, right? You know, in SaaS, software as a service, you're doing it usually by subscription-based model, meaning you're either paying per month or paying per year. So if you close one deal for 1 year, and let's say it's, you know, like 10K, for example, if they leave after the first year, well, now you have to go over, find another customer and bring in another 10K, right? But if you keep that customer happy and they want to still continue to become a customer or retain that customership, then for the next year, that's another 10K and you don't have to do any work of getting a new customer in. To make this happen and to keep the customers happy all years to come and to generate 10K, 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 10K every single year, or even sell more than that, a customer success manager is important. So a customer success manager is basically kind of like a salesperson, but they take over the deal after the deal is closed. And their job is to make the customer happy, make sure they're using the product, answer any of their questions that they may have, maybe even find opportunities to sell them more products and services if that's what they need. At the end of the day, it's just making the customer successful, whatever it may be. And it's a very relationship-based type of role. So similar to sales, right? Like they don't really teach you how to be a customer success manager in school. They just don't, right? So really it's all about your soft skills, your ability to deal with conflict, deal with people, be persuasive, very similar to the sales skill set, except you're not going after trying to persuade people to buy. You're really just helping people become more successful after they purchase your product and service. So this role, the customer success manager, it's really good for people who are interested in working with people but don't like the pressure of being a salesperson. So if that suits you, that might be the perfect fit for you. Now the next job that we have is going to be the project manager. So a project manager, essentially like if you're working at a startup, a technology company, like you have projects, right? Like you want to create a new feature in your software. Well, there has to be a person in charge of everybody, meaning who's telling the designer what to do, keeping track of the time, and are they designing the things on time? Who's keeping track of the engineers, who's managing this project, who's putting all the resources together. And especially if you work at larger organizations, project manager is 100% essential because somebody has to keep tabs on everything and make sure that everything goes along smoothly and goes along on time, which is very important. Essentially, that's a project manager's role. Now, do you need prior experience to be a project manager? Not necessarily, but it helps to have a good understanding of the work of the people that you are managing. So you're not really their manager, right? You're not their boss, you're more their peer who's kind of just organizing everything. So if you're a project manager and you're dealing with, let's say, engineers, right? You definitely need to understand some level of how engineering works to be able to allocate resources and plan everything appropriately. Like if you're a project manager and you have no idea about how software works or anything like that, nobody's gonna really take you seriously because they're gonna think you have no idea what you're doing. Yeah, you don't need to code, but you need to understand like how long it takes for someone to do something, how difficult it is. You know, if they're trying to do something hard, is it really difficult or are they just saying that? You need to understand from a high level perspective how it works. Having a little bit of coding experience might help, but is it necessary? Not necessarily, but it may help. So the next job that we have for you that you can do without any prior experience is data analyst. In many different companies, a data analyst might be very different things actually, right? So it's a very general term, but essentially if we were to boil it down, it's someone that kind of looks at data and makes recommendations on what to do based on that data. So one of my friends, he has a job working at an app company. Basically they have this app, it's a game, right? So it's a racing game. And basically people come into the game and they play it, they spend money on it, on like virtual goods, like they want to make their car cooler or whatever it is, or they want to skip levels or save time, they pay money for that. So his job, all he does is like he looks at the data of like where the money's coming from, how are people using the app, how are they playing it, and they just look for ways to continue to monetize the customer. So if they're like, oh, everyone's buying this thing, let's go ahead and increase the price because, you know, they're gonna buy it anyways, and then that's how the company makes more money by just looking at the data, right? Like data analysts are actually very important because somebody has to look at the data and see like how are people actually using our product and what changes can we do or make to make it better or even make more money for the company, whether it's app or maybe enterprise software. It doesn't really matter, you know, what the company is, but as long as they have data coming in, they need to see how their users are interacting with the product, and by doing that, they're gonna make better decisions on what to improve for the future. So a data analyst, like, do you really need any experience for that? Not really. If you know how to use like Excel sheets and then, you know, learn the more technical stuff on the job, I think that's probably good enough, to be honest. You don't have to be like an engineer or programmer, right? You can be like a philosophy major and you're like, okay, I wanna get into sales and you can do this job. You know, you should look into it if you really enjoy looking at data. And now the final job I have for you is gonna be the account manager. The account manager is basically a salesperson that deals with customers who, similar to the customer success manager, deals with customers after the deal is closed. But the difference is an account manager isn't so involved in like making the customer successful. They're more involved in trying to get that customer to spend more money. You know, if they're paying 10K a month for a certain software, is it possible to get them to pay 15K a month instead by adding more services or offering more value in some way? You know, you are selling a customer, right? But the only difference is that the customer is already a current customer, you're just selling them more stuff. So it could be selling them more stuff that adds more value and they're like, oh, this is exactly what we need, thank you. Or it could be like getting them to renew longer or sign a longer contract. So a lot of times a account manager is actually the person responsible for actually getting the deal signed when it comes to renewing the customer. Whereas the customer success manager is more about just making them successful. Like any other sales role, it doesn't really require that much technical experience. You just need to understand things from a high level. And even you can do this job as an entry-level job. One of my roommates back in San Francisco, he started as an account manager without any sales experience and he did fine. So yeah, it's definitely something where, if you don't like the pressure of being salesy and going out there and presenting and stuff like that, and you want to work with people who already like you, well, account manager might be for you. And so with that said, those are going to be 7 jobs that you can do in tech without having any tech experience. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and let me know in the comments which job you found most interesting. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out my other video about how I started my technology sales career in Silicon Valley. So make sure to check that out right here. So with that said, my name is Patrick Dang, and I'll see you guys in the next one.